The world of Darren 6 was dying one storm at a time. Once a mining outpost for the United Earth Frontier Corps, it was now nothing more than a scarred desert that howled in endless fury. The storms didn't move like weather. They hunted, rolling across the land with unnatural purpose, shredding metal and bone alike. Every breath was grit, every sound the shriek of sand carving steel. In that storm, one man still fought to live. Sergeant Elias Ward, Recon Division, 3rd Frontier Marines, pressed against the fractured hull of his drop pod. The metal screamed with each gust, seams rattling as if the planet itself wanted to rip him apart. His helmet filters had long since failed, forcing him to wrap a torn sleeve around his mouth. Every inhale burned. His survival timer blinked crimson. Oxygen, 13%. He should have died already. He should have given up when the transport crashed 5 days ago, when the last distress call fizzled in static. But humans didn't die easy. Not on alien worlds, not in forgotten wars. The storm roared louder. Elias tightened his grip on the reinforced plates he'd scavenged from the pod's remains, jamming them deeper into the sand around the shelter's frame. The planet's surface shifted like liquid beneath his boots. He could feel the wind clawing at the seams, threatening to drag everything he built into the void. He muttered between clenched teeth. Not today. Not yet. He needed to dig deep, find something solid, anything dense enough to hold his fragile refuge against the wind. The sand wasn't just dry dust. It was mixed with shards of rusted metal, glass fragments from old mining machines, and something else, something magnetic that kept jamming his tools. He ignored the bleeding on his palms. He dug until the shovel cracked. Then he used the broken edge like a blade, carving through layers of rock and sand. Sweat soaked his undersuit. His breath came in wheezes, each one a fight against the thin air. The roar of the storm swallowed every sound but one. The rhythmic scrape of his digging, then came the clank, a single sharp sound that didn't belong in the sand. Elias froze. For a moment he thought it was part of the pod, maybe a buried strut or a dislodged component. But it came again, softer this time, like metal under tension. He wiped dust from his visor and dug faster. Beneath the orange grit, the shape took form, smooth, curved metal, seamless as if molded by hand rather than built. No corrosion, no markings, just perfection buried under centuries. That's not human tech. He crouched lower, clearing more of the surface. The thing was shaped like a capsule, about the length of a person, narrow at the ends. When he brushed away more sand, he saw faint symbols etched along the edges. Flowing lines like circuitry and script fused into one. He hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. Frontier training said never to touch unknown artifacts. Never. But isolation warps reason, and desperation whispers louder than orders. He pulled his utility knife and pried at a seam near the center. The sand hissed as if alive. The shell cracked open with a breath of cold air, misting against his face. Inside was something that made his blood run cold. A body, pale silver skin unblemished. Not lifeless gray, metallic, like living steel beneath light. The armor was fused directly into the skin, smooth and seamless, curving over a lithe frame. The face was hidden beneath a visor fractured down the middle, showing just enough to reveal closed eyes beneath. Eyes too large, too luminous even in sleep. Elias whispered, "Holy hell." He backed up, scanning the dunes instinctively. No movement. No signals. His wrist scanner flickered, its sensors overwhelmed by interference. The storm above churned but didn't touch this spot, as if the very air around the capsule resisted it. He returned his gaze to the figure. No breathing, no warmth. Frozen in perfect stillness. Not mechanical, no servos, no lights, no pulse of energy. Just a dead alien buried in sand, like a secret the planet had refused to let die. He reached out slowly, brushing sand off its chest plate. The texture was strange, neither metal nor skin. It flexed faintly under his touch, soft but firm, like it remembered what it meant to be alive. He froze again. He could feel vibration. a low hum deep within the surface of the body, faint and rhythmic, like a heartbeat waking from a long sleep. He jerked his hand away, backing up fast. "No, no, no, no!" The hum grew louder. The capsule glowed from within, seams lighting up with pale silver light that cut through the storm's red haze. Elias shielded his eyes. The wind around him shifted violently, pulling toward the figure like gravity itself bent in its favor. He stumbled backward as the visor split open with a hiss. The body within twitched, once, then twice, then drew in a slow, shuddering breath that echoed through the dunes. The alien's eyes snapped open. They weren't eyes the way humans understood them. They were lenses of light, swirling with tiny silver fragments like dust suspended in liquid. They locked onto Elias with something between recognition and fury. Then, in a voice that wasn't quite sound, a blend of static, language, and thought, she spoke. "Fool. Now they'll find me." The world stopped breathing. The storm froze mid-motion. The wind, the sand, the endless howl, gone. Even the sound of his own breathing felt muted, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Elias's instincts kicked in. He raised his rifle, stumbling backward, eyes wide. "Stay down! Don't move!" The alien didn't flinch. She rose slowly from the capsule, movements fluid but heavy, like someone remembering how to walk. Her armor pulsed faintly, light racing through patterns across her body. Her voice came again, sharper now, more coherent. "Your machines have stirred the signal. They will come. You've doomed us both," Elias tried to process. "Who's coming? Who the hell are you?" She turned her head toward the horizon. For the first time, he noticed the silence beyond the dunes, unnatural, absolute. Then a new sound filled the air, a deep thrumming pulse, faint but unmistakable. It came from the sky. He looked up and froze. The clouds above had begun to swirl, not from weather, but from something breaking through the upper atmosphere. A tier of violet light stretched across the heavens. Something vast moved behind it, distant yet close enough to cast a shadow across the desert. The alien looked at him, eyes cold as glass. "They found my signature." "Who?" Elias shouted, over the hum rising in pitch. "The Vorn." The name meant nothing to him, but the way she said it made his stomach drop. She staggered out of the crater, her knees nearly buckling. Elias caught her reflexively, surprised by how light she felt, like holding woven metal rather than flesh. Her temperature was cold, almost painfully so, yet alive. She looked at him with confusion. "You aid me?" "I'm not in the habit of letting people collapse, even if they're not people," he said through gritted teeth. A flicker of amusement or disbelief crossed her face. "Humans, always trying to save what they don't understand." Elias scanned the sky again. The rift of light grew larger. Shapes emerged, sharp, angular, almost insect-like silhouettes descending slowly through the storm. 3 of them. Silent, methodical. "Yeah, well," he muttered. "Understanding can wait. Shelter first." He guided her back toward the half-buried pod, throwing a tarp over the capsule remains. The ground vibrated beneath their boots. The ships were closer now. He could feel their gravity pressing the air. Inside the pod, he sealed the hatch and pulled up his handheld display. The radar was useless, blank static. The alien stood beside him, watching every move with calculating precision. Elias finally turned to her, panting. "All right, start talking. What are you, and what did I just wake up?" She met his gaze, eyes like molten mercury. "I am Sayarath of the Kalari Dominion, once commander of the Silver Vanguard. Long ago, I fled the extinction of my kind. The Vorn hunted us across systems, machines that devour civilizations, born from what we once created." She looked at the sand-stained floor. "I came here to sleep, to wait for them to forget." Her voice grew distant. "You have undone that." Elias swallowed hard. "You're saying I just turned on a beacon for alien death machines?" Her stare was answer enough. Outside, a deep rumble shook the ground. The light through the cracks of the pod shifted from orange to white. Something had entered the atmosphere. Massive, silent, deliberate. Elias felt the vibration through his bones. His HUD flickered, showing radiation spikes, magnetic distortion, and gravitational anomalies all at once. "They're scanning," he muttered. "They're scanning the surface." Sirath's tone was calm but heavy. "They will not scan. They will burn." Elias grabbed his rifle, checking the last of his power cells. "Then we better not be here when they start," but she didn't move. Instead, she placed her palm against the wall of the pod. Lines of faint silver energy rippled across the metal, forming a web of alien glyphs. The temperature dropped instantly. The rumbling outside paused, as if muffled. Elias stepped back. "What did you just do?" "Masked us," she said simply. "For now. They will search. But soon they will send ground hunters." Her eyes dimmed slightly. "You've brought me out too soon. My strength is not yet returned." Elias crouched beside her. "Then rest. I'll handle the rest." Her gaze sharpened. "You, a single human against the Vorn?" He loaded his weapon with a half-smile. "Ma'am, I'm a Marine." "Hopeless is just another word for Tuesday." She studied him in silence for a moment, then said softly, "You may not survive this." Elias looked toward the shaking walls of the pod. "Yeah, well, one problem at a time." Outside, lightning split the horizon again. The storm had changed, no longer random but organized, moving in circles as if searching. Above the dunes, shadows shifted. Metal glinted against the sky, and in that buried shelter, under alien skies and impossible silence, two enemies of fate, one human, one ancient, prepared for a storm far deadlier than sand. The hunt had begun. The quiet didn't last. It was the kind of silence that screamed beneath the surface. A pause before the strike. The storm outside had collapsed into an eerie calm. The sky dimmed to a pewter gray. The air pressed heavy, humming with static, as if reality itself had bent under invisible weight. Elias could feel it. A vibration through his bones, a low pulse that wasn't sound but presence. Sirath, standing near the pod's fractured bulkhead, didn't move. Her luminous eyes flickered once, scanning the horizon through the cracks in the hull. "They're close," she said, her tone flat and certain. "Closer than you can imagine." Elias checked the readout on his wrist pad. Static. His comms, sensors, and navigation were nothing but interference now. "Yeah, I'm getting that impression." He tightened the strap on his rifle and peered through the viewport slit. The dunes were no longer red, and they shimmered faintly with a mirror-like sheen. Particles in the sand were aligning under some unseen field. "Vorn?" he asked. Sirath nodded slowly. "Their scouts have entered the upper atmosphere. Small, efficient, and merciless." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "They can taste a pulse from miles away. Heartbeat, power cell, or even the static in your nerves." Elias exhaled through gritted teeth. "So they can smell me breathe. Essentially. Fantastic." He crouched, checking the remaining ammo pack, one magazine of depleted plasma rounds and a single high-yield fragmentation charge. Not much, but he'd made worse work before. "You got anything stronger than angry looks and cryptic warnings?" Her eyes narrowed. "You woke me before I was ready. My body needs time to adapt. My energy cores are barely functioning. If I try to fight now, I burn out. Permanently." "Then we stall," Elias said. "You hide. I hold the line." She blinked at him. Not disbelief, but something colder, analytical. "You cannot hold against them. Even your kind's machines fall within moments. You'll die for nothing." Elias's smirk didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe. But I'm good at making nothing last longer than it should." Sirath tilted her head slightly, a ghost of confusion crossing her alien face. There was no understanding of sacrifice in her expression, no shared frame of reference for what he meant. Yet for the briefest second, her gaze softened, not pity, but respect for a creature too stubborn to accept its limits. Then the horizon split open. 3 streaks of black light tore through the clouds, descending silently toward the desert. They left no trail, no heat signature, just absence like voids cutting through air. Each strike hit the ground miles away, throwing rings of molten sand skyward that froze mid-air before shattering like glass. Elias's pulse spiked. "Contact," 3 signatures. You called it. They send only a vanguard first, Sirath murmured, her tone darkening. To confirm the signal. The others will follow once they kill the source. Great. I always wanted to be bait. He moved fast. Years of training took over. He pulled the pod's emergency energy cell from the wall, jammed it into his weapon's charging slot, and glanced at the alien. You stay out of sight. If they breach, you run! She didn't answer. When the first tremor hit, it wasn't from impact. It was from something walking. Elias felt the vibrations approach through the sand before he saw them, long, spider-like shapes gliding just beneath the dunes. The creatures didn't step. They flowed, their limbs rearranging like liquid metal. When they surfaced, Elias's mind barely caught up with what he saw. They were tall, almost skeletal, black exoskeletons fused with glimmering veins of crimson light, faces split into angular mandibles. Their torsos pulsed faintly, like translucent armor shielding something alive inside. But what chilled him most was the sound. None. They moved without breathing, without noise, as if the desert itself carried them. The nearest one rose to full height, its core pulsing in rhythm with that hum that had haunted the air since morning. Its faceless head tilted toward Elias's shelter. Yeah, he muttered. It sees me. He didn't wait. He opened fire. The plasma bolts tore through the sand, hitting the creature's upper torso. The blast scattered molten fragments, but the thing didn't fall. The red light beneath its armor rippled, repairing itself like liquid glass. It lunged forward, faster than sight, its forelimbs slashing into the pod's frame. Elias dove aside just as a metal claw ripped through where he'd been standing. Sparks showered the cabin. The creature thrust its spear-like appendage again, puncturing the steel wall. Elias jammed his rifle against the limb and fired point blank. The plasma discharge blew the limb apart in a shower of sizzling fragments. The creature screeched, not with sound, but with a vibration that rattled his teeth. Elias didn't stop. He grabbed the emergency charge, armed it, and hurled it under the creature's frame. Chew on this, tin bug. The explosion turned the world white. The pod's walls shook, sand poured through the seams, and the alien hunter vanished in a shockwave of flame and shrapnel. Elias coughed, shielding his face, ears ringing. Then came the second one. It burst from below, throwing him against the wall. A claw slammed down where his head had been a heartbeat earlier. He rolled, firing his last few plasma rounds, hitting one of the glowing seams near its shoulder. The impact staggered it, but not enough. And then, light. Silver light, cold and searing. Sirath stood at the breach, eyes blazing like stars. Her hands glowed, energy rippling down her arms in living arcs. She thrust her palms forward, and a wave of silver fire slammed into the creature, disintegrating its torso into dust. The blast turned the inside of the pod into a storm of luminous ash. When the dust cleared, she was panting, but alive. Elias groaned, pulling himself upright. Thought you said you couldn't fight. She looked at her hands where faint cracks glowed through her metallic skin. I said I shouldn't. There's a difference. Outside, the third Vorn landed, its shadow blotting out what little light remained. It towered higher than the pod, 8 limbs moving like blades through smoke. Its core pulsed brighter, a hunter's signal broadcasting to the fleet above. Elias swore. They're calling for backup. He checked his weapon. Empty. Sirath's glow dimmed. She was weakening fast. The air vibrated as the Vorn charged, claws slicing through the dune. But Elias had already moved. He sprinted forward, diving under the creature's legs, grabbing a shard of the broken pod frame as an improvised weapon. He jabbed it deep into the joint between armor plates. The creature shrieked, twisting. But that was all he needed. Sirath, now! She staggered forward, both hands trembling, energy building between them. A pulse of silver light burst outward, meeting the creature's crimson energy head-on. The two forces clashed, shaking the dunes like thunder. The desert erupted in spirals of sand and lightning. Elias shielded his face as the wave hit. For a moment, all he could see was light. Then silence again. When the world came back into focus, the creature was gone, vaporized. Half the dune had collapsed into a glass crater. Sirath fell to her knees, breathing hard. Her armor dimmed almost to black. Elias dropped beside her. "You okay?" Her voice was faint. "I've burned through my reserves. I cannot fight again." He tore a strip from his sleeve, pressing it against a gash on her shoulder, more out of instinct than sense. The material hissed against her skin, steaming slightly. "Then you rest. I'll take first watch." She looked at him, eyes weary but curious. "You risk your life for someone you met an hour ago." Elias half smiled. "It's a bad human habit. We don't like dying alone." Something flickered across her face. Not emotion exactly, but something close. She turned her gaze toward the horizon. "They will not stop. They'll send more now that I've reawakened. My presence draws them. Then we make a plan," Elias said, scanning the debris-strewn desert. "If they're tracking you by energy, we give them something bigger to follow." Her eyes shifted to him, narrowing slightly. "You wish to use bait." "Exactly. But not you. Me." "You're insane." "Yeah, that's been said before." He stood, retrieving a half-melted drone core from the sand. "This still runs on an open frequency. If I amplify it with your capsule's energy signature, maybe we can broadcast a false signal. Make them think you're somewhere else." Sirath hesitated, studying him. "You would mislead the Vorn? That's bold." Humans are good at two things: breaking stuff and lying to people trying to kill us. A thin line of silver light formed along her cheek, a faint, alien approximation of a smile. "Perhaps your kind's recklessness is useful." They spent hours working under the fading sun. Sirath used fragments of her dormant armor to channel the decoy pulse, while Elias modified the drone's transmitter to project it miles away. By nightfall, the false signal pulsed across the horizon, drifting toward the magnetic poles. Within minutes, 3 distant black shapes turned north, drawn to the decoy. Elias watched them vanish. "Looks like they bought it." Sirath didn't respond. Her gaze was distant, almost mournful. "You're delaying the inevitable. When their masters realize the deception, they will send the full swarm. Then we find a way off this rock before that happens." Her metallic brow furrowed. "You cannot leave. The storm fields around this world tear apart anything that climbs past orbit." Elias cracked a grin. "Good thing I've crashed enough ships to know how to rebuild one." She blinked, almost startled by the audacity in his tone. "You humans, every time I think I understand your limitations, you redefine them." He shrugged, shouldering his rifle again. "That's kind of our hobby." As the twin moons rose over the dunes, their silver light reflecting in her alien eyes, Sirath whispered softly, perhaps not to him, but to herself. "Maybe the universe kept me asleep until your kind existed, because only you would be foolish enough to fight the Vorn with nothing but courage." Elias didn't hear the words. He was already outside, scanning the horizon for movement, back straight despite exhaustion. The wind had picked up again, carrying whispers across the desert, voices of metal and storm. Above them, far in the dark sky, a fleet of black shapes gathered in orbit, waiting, hunting. The next wave was coming, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorn would face something their logic couldn't predict, a human who refused to stop fighting. The desert sky burned again, only this time it wasn't the storm. It was war. From the moment the decoy signal went live, Elias knew it was only a matter of time before something, noticed. He just didn't expect it to be both the Vorn and Earth Command. For 2 days, he and Sirath had scavenged the wreckage of her ancient ship buried beneath the dunes. The vessel's skeleton stretched for kilometers underground, a labyrinth of fractured alloy and dead power conduits that still hummed faintly with residual energy. It was older than humanity's first colonies, maybe older than Earth's written history. Sirath moved through the ruins like one walking through ghosts. Her hands brushed the walls, fingers leaving faint trails of silver light where she touched. "This ship carried 10,000 of my people once. she murmured. We fled from the Vorn across galaxies. Only I remained to bury it. Elias didn't know how to respond. He just tightened his gloves, scanning the readings on his cracked HUD. Then we make it count for something again. He wasn't an engineer, but years of field repair and desperation made him one in spirit. Using spare parts from the pod and fragments of Vorn metal, he rebuilt one of the ship's auxiliary reactors, primitive by alien standards, but powerful enough to send a distress beacon across systems. By the third night, the beacon pulsed in orbit like a flare. Humanity heard, and then everything came crashing down. The first human ship appeared on the horizon at dawn. The silhouette was unmistakable. A UNS Scout-class corvette, sleek and scarred, its thrusters roaring against the sky. It cut through, the atmosphere like a blade, followed by 4 escort fighters. Elias climbed a ridge, waving a flare. About damn time! The corvette descended, its landing jets scattering dunes. He heard the crackle of comms for the first time in weeks, human voices breaking through static. Sergeant Ward, this is the UNS Resolute. Confirm identity. Ward, Recon Delta, Code 39, Humanity First. I'm alive, barely. And I've got company. A pause. Then the reply came, wary. Company meaning local wildlife or alien intelligence. Elias looked back at Sirath, who stood behind him, calm and unreadable, her eyes reflecting the sun like silver glass. Yeah, let's go with the second one. The response was pure silence. When the landing ramp opened, 2 Marines stepped out with rifles raised. The moment they saw Sirath, their grips tightened. She didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't move, just watched them like one observing curious insects. Elias raised both hands. Stand down. She's with me. One of the Marines muttered, With you? The ship's commander, Lieutenant Veer, stepped out next. His expression was the face of a soldier who'd seen too many corpses to trust miracles. Sergeant Ward, you've got 10 seconds to explain why an unknown entity is standing next to you and why our orbital scans show hostile energy signatures inbound. Because, Elias said, gesturing to Sirath, she's the reason those signatures are inbound. And the reason we might survive them. That was when the sky split open again. A thunderous crack echoed through the stratosphere. Veer's comms flared with static. Admiral Chen to all units. Vorn vessels detected. Orbital formation. 3. Primary 7 support. Defensive posture. Now! Elias didn't need translation. The Vorn fleet had arrived. He turned to Sirath, who was staring upward. Her expression was stone. They've come for me. Not just for you, Elias said grimly. They'll wipe this planet clean. She nodded once, resigned. Then humanity joins the ledger of extinction, not if we burn the pen first. The sky became fire. From orbit, the first Vorn strike rained down, beams of white-hot plasma that cut through clouds like swords. One blast vaporized a ridge kilometers away, turning it to glass. Another carved a trench that glowed blue in the sand. The human fleet responded instantly. Resolute and her escorts fired kinetic missiles and plasma torpedoes upward, the atmosphere glowing from the exchange. Streaks of light crisscrossed the heavens. For every Vorn ship hit, 3 human vessels fell. In the command deck of the corvette, Elias watched the battle through the viewport. Sirath stood beside him, her hands gripping the edge of the console. Her calm facade cracked just slightly. Grief flickered beneath her coldness. They adapt too fast, she said. Your weapons harm them once, never twice. Admiral Chen's voice barked through the intercom. Ward, you're closest to the signal source. If you've got anything that can disrupt them, now's the time. Elias looked at Sirath. You said your ship's core is still alive, right? She hesitated. Barely. It's a stasis core, a gravity singularity designed to suspend entire worlds in time. Can it be overloaded? Yes, she said slowly, but it would collapse everything within range. The desert, the orbit, the ships, you, me. Elias didn't blink. So it'll take them down too? She looked at him, realization dawning. You can't be serious. I'm a Marine. I don't have to be smart. I just have to make sure the bad guys die first. For a moment, the alien warrior and the human soldier stood in silence. Then she gave a faint, resigned laugh, soft, almost human. You truly are a species of madness. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. The battle raged for hours. The Vorn ships descended closer to the surface, their black hulls twisting like liquid under human fire. The Resolute's plasma cannons overloaded twice, and her shields flickered. 2 frigates fell to the surface in burning arcs. The sky bled blue and red, a storm of war. Elias and Unearthed worked through the chaos inside the buried ruins. They reached the heart of her ancient ship, a chamber of colossal rings orbiting a pulsing orb of silver light. The core was alive, breathing, humming like a sleeping god. This thing could flatten half a system, Elias whispered. You sure it'll fry the Vorn too? If they remain in orbit, she said, hands already moving over the control glyphs. Once activated, there will be no stopping it. He glanced upward through the fractured ceiling. The air above shimmered faintly from orbital fire. Then we time it. You power it up, I coordinate the detonation when they align overhead. Unearthed gave him a long look. You realize this means your fleet must remain here. They cannot retreat before the collapse begins. Elias exhaled. Then we make it fast. Outside, the dunes became a battlefield of flesh and metal. Vorn drones poured from landing pods like liquid spiders, slicing through sand and steel alike. Human infantry met them head-on, firing from foxholes and wrecked transports. Lieutenant Veer's voice cracked through comms. Ward, where the hell are you? We're losing the ridge, Elias replied between bursts of static. Buying you time, Lieutenant. Keep your men clear of the crater. Big surprise coming. Define big. He didn't answer. Deep underground, Unearthed's energy spread across the chamber, the stasis core pulsing brighter with each second. The air trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling in ripples. Once I reach full charge, she said, we will have 5 minutes before total collapse. Elias gritted his teeth. Plenty of time. She stared at him. You humans measure time very differently. The ground shuddered as another blast hit nearby. The Vorn were closing in. Elias heard the distinct whine of energy discharges above, the sound of plasma tearing through air. Then the first Vorn walker broke through the surface. It was enormous, 10 meters tall, 8 limbs like knives, a red core pulsing in its chest. It screeched, slamming into the sand, scanning for the energy spike below. Elias turned to Unearthed. They found us. She didn't stop working. I need 60 seconds. He raised his rifle and climbed the slope toward the entrance. The walker turned, sensors locking on him instantly. Its first beam shot past his head, slicing a trench through the ground. Elias dove for cover, then fired a single shot at one of its limbs, more to distract than damage. Come on, he muttered. Look at me, you ugly machine. The walker did. It charged, limbs stabbing into the sand, each impact shaking the ground like thunder. Elias sprinted up the ridge, firing over his shoulder. His shots barely scratched it. Then a flash of silver erupted from below. Unearthed emerged, eyes blazing white. She leapt from the crater, energy rippling around her body like a storm. With a single motion, she hurled a spear of condensed light into the walker's chest. The blast shattered its core, sending molten fragments raining across the desert. She landed beside Elias, smoke curling from her armor. Time's up. The core is primed. Then let's finish this. The sky above was chaos. Vorn ships repositioned into attack formation, forming a triangle of death. Human ships, battered and burning, closed ranks around Resolute to protect her command. Admiral Chen's voice broke through comms. "Ward, whatever you're doing down there, do it now!" Elias and Searath stood atop the dune, the wind ripping at them. The core's energy pulsed beneath their feet, visible through cracks in the sand, silver light flooding upward like veins through the planet itself. Elias activated his comms. "Admiral, pull your men back to high orbit. When this thing blows, it's taking half the stratosphere with it." "Understood," Chen replied. "We'll clear in 4 minutes." Searath looked at him. "You won't make it to orbit in time." He smiled, tired and calm. "Wasn't planning to." Her expression hardened. "You would stay? Someone has to trigger the manual override." He pointed toward the horizon, where the Vorn fleet glowed red against the clouds. "And someone has to make sure they don't get out alive." Searath's gaze lingered. "You would give your life for mine. For a species you barely know," Elias shrugged. "You're not the enemy. That's good enough for me." Something inside her broke. Something ancient and cold melted in her eyes. "Then humanity is more dangerous than we ever feared. You love death like we once loved victory," he laughed once. "Nah, we just hate losing." She reached out, touching his chest gently. The contact sent a surge of warmth through him. "Then fight no more. I'll trigger it." Before he could protest, she stepped forward into the light, her body dissolving into shimmering fragments that fused with the ground. The planet itself seemed to breathe. The core roared to life. Elias fell to his knees as gravity folded inward, the sky collapsing into a vortex of light. He saw the Vorn fleet above twisting, their forms shredding into static and dust. Human ships barely cleared the pull, thrusters burning white-hot as they fled. Through the blinding light, he heard her voice, not from outside, but within him. "You taught me something my kind forgot. That courage is not survival. It's defiance." And then the world vanished in a blaze of silver and red. Hours later, in orbit, the Resolute stabilized. The planet below was gone, reduced to a single crystalline sphere reflecting the dying sun. Every Vorn signal vanished. In the silence that followed, Admiral Chen whispered, "Godspeed, Sergeant Ward." But far beyond human scanners, a faint signal pulsed from deep space, a human heartbeat, weak but steady, and somewhere in the void a voice answered in silver light. "The war is not over. But now, humanity fights beside me." The explosion that devoured the desert should have ended everything. But war never ends cleanly. Elias Ward should have been dead. The detonation from Searath's ship core had folded space around him, vaporized rock and sand, and burned atmosphere into plasma. Yet he awoke, floating weightless in an endless silver void, surrounded by flickers of light that moved like drifting embers. He wasn't breathing. He wasn't even sure he was. Then the voice came, calm, echoing through nothing. "You lived. You stubborn fool," Searath's voice. Elias spun around. She stood before him, not flesh, not armor, but a projection of glowing threads, her form woven from energy and memory. Her eyes shimmered like a dying star. "What happened?" he whispered. "You triggered the collapse. The Vorn fleet was annihilated. Your human ships escaped the event horizon." Her voice softened. "But the blast tore the stasis core open. You were caught inside the singularity's heart. I held you there. Between death and time," Elias flexed his hand, solid yet ghostly. "So, I'm in limbo?" "In something like it," she said. "We exist between realities, what your kind might call hyperspace. But it will not hold for long. The core is unstable. Soon it will scatter into fragments." He stared at her, realization dawning. "And us? If we stay, we dissolve with it." He took a slow breath, then grinned faintly. "Guess we'd better find a way out then." Searath studied him for a long moment, her light flickering. "There is a way, but it is impossible." Elias chuckled dryly. "You haven't met humans. Impossible just means we haven't died trying yet." She almost smiled. The void cracked open. Silver fissures spread through the darkness. And beyond them, Elias glimpsed reality. Stars streaking past. Fragments of planets, frozen ships caught mid-destruction. The aftermath of the collapse had spilled chaos across systems. Sirath pointed to a distant glow in the fractures, a pulse of blue light beating like a heart. That is the remnant gate, the last function of my ship's core. If we reach it before the singularity collapses, it will return us to normal space. And if we don't, we become radiation. All right, Elias said, cracking his knuckles. Let's walk. They didn't walk so much as will themselves forward. The void wasn't distance, it was thought. Sirath glided effortlessly, her form bending light around her. Elias stumbled, his body flickering, reality rejecting him. She turned back, watching him struggle. Your mind resists this dimension. You were not made for it. Yeah, well, he muttered. Earth wasn't made for war either, but we did it anyway. She sighed softly. You humans, you burn yourselves just to shine, he smirked. Damn right. The journey was chaos. As they pushed toward the gate, the void began to fracture. Shards of broken time drifted past, moments frozen in light. Elias saw glimpses of the battle from above, human ships blazing, Vorn vessels twisting, explosions reversed and replayed. Once, he saw his younger self, shouting orders during the siege of Titan. Another fragment showed Earth, blue, whole, peaceful. He reached out instinctively, but his hand passed through the vision like smoke. Sirath's voice was low. These are memories, echoes drawn from your neural field. The void feeds on thought. Do not linger, but it was hard not to. He saw his squad again, Reyes, Olin, Harper. All dead years ago. They smiled, alive in the illusion. You did good, Ward, one said. You got us home. He clenched his fists. You're not real. Neither is war, the echo said. But it kills just the same. Sirath pulled him away. The memory shattered. Focus, she ordered. The singularity is collapsing. Every second we delay, the gate dims. He nodded, forcing himself forward, pushing through the storm of illusions. Ahead, something shifted. The silver light darkened, turned black. A shape emerged, a massive construct of twisted metal and tendrils, its form pulsing with red energy. The very void seemed to recoil from it. Elias's blood went cold. Tell me that's not what I think it is. Sirath's face hardened. The Vorn Prime, their hive consciousness. It survived the collapse. The creature's voice was 1,000 whispers speaking at once. You thought yourselves victorious. You only fed us. Your defiance gave us form. Sirath stepped forward, light flaring from her hands. You are nothing but a remnant, a shadow. And yet I still breathe, while your kind lie extinct, the Prime hissed. It lunged. Elias barely dove aside as a tendril of red energy slashed through the void, tearing a hole in the dimension itself. Fragments of reality spilled out. Stars, wrecks, screams, Sirath countered, hurling a bolt of pure light that exploded across the creature's chest. The Prime staggered, but only for a moment. Its wound sealed instantly, regenerating with a grotesque pulse. Elias cursed. It's absorbing your attacks. She grimaced. The Prime feeds on energy. Even mine. Then we hit it with something it can't eat, Elias said, gripping his sidearm, though the weapon was nothing but a thought here. Still, when he aimed, it solidified. Sirath looked at him incredulously. That primitive weapon cannot harm it, he grinned. It's not the gun that matters. It's the human behind it. He fired. The bullet ripped through the void. Not metal, not plasma, but intent. The shot was his will, his defiance given shape. It struck the Prime's core and detonated with a shockwave that tore through the dimension. The creature shrieked, staggering back. Its regeneration faltered. Sirath stared at him in awe. You manifested matter through consciousness. Impossible, Elias smirked. You're not the first one to say that today. The Prime roared again, sending waves of energy in all directions. The void cracked wider, collapsing faster. The gate's light began to flicker in the distance. We can't win by fighting, Sirath said, her form trembling. Not here. We must outrun it, Elias nodded. Then move! They ran, if it could be called that, hurling themselves through the collapsing space. Behind them, the Prime chased, its tendrils ripping through time like claws. Every second, reality folded tighter, the light dimmer. The gate loomed ahead, a vortex of blinding blue, swirling with unstable energy. Sirath's voice echoed in his mind. "Once we reach it, we must synchronize our frequencies or it will tear us apart."